Ekiri eno olutalo lwennyini abakulira banka enkulu eya Uganda bakiguddeko ebigambo bibakalidde ku mimwa lwaki ensimbi ya Uganda egwa buli olukya lwaki enaabuuka eggwawo era lwaki ekitongole kino tekinnaba kufuna muntu abanga gavana lwaleero ate nga lwadde babeeramu ebbanga eddene era ensimbi ezoonoonebwa ezibulankanyizibwa okuva mu Bank of Uganda baana bali megawe muvuyo gino luli eno mu Parliament abaka batadde akazito okubakulira Bank of Uganda engeri ensimbi bwe ziyobudibudibwa ez'omuwi w'omusolo era n'engeri ebintu ebyenjawulo katumala okufuna ebigambo bino.
Mr. Governor, you give banks at a rate of 10%. Banks give out this money at a rate of 24%. The margin of difference is around 14%. Are you comfortable with it vis-a-vis the economic crisis in this country? 2, you reduce the bank interest rate, the CRB, from 10% to 10.25%.
Is that a reduction mathematically? Reducing 10 from 10 to 10?
Sorry, you increased from 10% to 10.25% with the intention of curbing down on inflation. But for us who live in the communities, we realize there is total scarcity of money in this country. Can you tell us the inflation rates in this country from 2021 to today? Because we want to compare whether there is really an increase in inflation in this country that is causing your hiking of interest rates. Lastly, Mr. Chairman, to the Governor. Governor, you know, government is failing to pay its own debts, but you've allowed them to continue and borrow, even from you. But when Ugandans fail to pay their debts, the way they are treated with the penalties, you find that most Ugandans have lost properties because of those penalties. Someone who had a loan of 12 million, because of the penalties, you find the loan has gone to 20 million. Are you comfortable with the prevailing circumstances of our economy to continue with that arrangement of fiscal policy or monetary policy where Ugandans are overcharged as penalties for failure to pay their loans, and you even don't allow them to borrow money or sometimes even to restructure their loans because they have failed to pay, and yet the government that you are serving itself is failing to pay its loans, but you allow them to go and borrow?
Thank you very much.
Additionally, Governor, I'm grateful to meet you, but mine is an inquiry. Bank of Uganda and the Minister of Finance, you had a series of meetings The one I last learned of was in Rwanda. Rwanda around toward December, where IMF was saying that the government of Uganda, there is little money in circulation, you need to print money. But it's believed that you and the Secretary of the Treasury, you said over your dead body will not print money. And the IMF seemed to be saying that the financial gurus of Uganda seem to be out of touch of realities. Is it true or is it true?
Okay. Any other? Yes, Vice Chair.
I would like also to emphasize this. You raised it before. The effects as Bank of Uganda you are facing has not been with the substantive governor. I know you are going to put it in writing, but I wanted to emphasize it because Ugandans have to know the effect, the challenges. Can Bank of Uganda move on, as we are coming almost to 3 years without a substantive governor? So we need the effect of this, the experience you are passing through in line of this.
Okay. When you're discharged, grab the next plane. If you don't, there will be a review. I think those are good questions from members, and these questions come from the public. Let me also ask you, I've had this thing called digital money lending and borrowing. Someone gives you money, when you fail to pay, then they call all your contacts. Is that business regulated? If it is regulated, what is the interest rate for those ones? How do we monitor? Are we also receiving taxes from those money lenders? Just yesterday I was on radio, and one of those platforms was even advertising on radio. How are you regulating that? And how far are we with the regulating cryptocurrency? Because those are some of the challenges of the digital era. Please introduce yourself, answer those questions, and grab the next plane.
I'm a representative of Nakaseke Central, and I'm the vice chairperson of this committee. Alan Mayanja.
First one to strike is the Honorable
increasing, why raise the CBR? Sorry, Chair. Honorable Chair, my name's Michael Atingi Ego. I'm the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda.
Who do you deputize?
As far as I'm concerned, I'm the Deputy Governor, Bank of Uganda.
Okay, it's a deeper question. Proceed.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. Why increase the CBR when there's no money? I think we need to ask ourselves, why do we change the CBR? We change the CBR based on our outlook for inflation. Honorable members of Parliament, you will recall that we only raised the CBR from 9.5 to 10% in the month of March. And then in the month of April, we raised by another 25 basis points. When we raised it from 9.5 to 10% in March, it was in an ad hoc Monetary Policy Committee meeting. It was not scheduled. But honorable members of Parliament, you are all aware of what happened to the exchange rate in the month of February 2024. The currency depreciated from about 3,750 to about 3,970, almost shy of touching 4,000. And you ask yourself, why did that happen? That happened because there were a number of regional developments in some of the peer markets. We had countries like Cote d'Ivoire issuing a Eurobond to raise money for their maturing Eurobond, soon to mature. And then that was followed by Kenya. Kenya had a maturity of 2 billion Eurobonds next month of June 2024. But they were grappling with how do they get money to repay that. So they also issued another Eurobond with the aim of wanting to get money to buy back some of what was maturing in June. And indeed, they were able to raise about 1.5 billion euros and to buy back the maturing 2 billion. So they have an outstanding $500 million in the month of June. Sooner had they done that, then they issued another infrastructure bond. Now that infrastructure bond had very, very good interest rates. It was tax-free. So it attracted a number of investors, offshore investors, to participate in it. Initially, they wanted to offer 50 billion Kenya shillings, but they end up offering more than 200 billion Kenya shillings. So what happens? A number of the investors who are in the Ugandan securities market decided to shift from Uganda to go to Kenya. And in shifting, they liquidated the Uganda securities that they were holding, government securities, treasury bills and treasury bonds. And once they got the shillings, they eroded the foreign exchange market. There was significant demand of FX in the market in the month of February, which caused a sharp depreciation in the currency as these players were exiting. We also saw heightened demand by manufacturing firms, by corporates. So the month of February had exceptionally high demand for foreign currency in the market. So the currency now depreciated to 3,950 plus, north of that. Now, if you look at the impact of a depreciating currency on inflation, it means that the goods that you are going to import will have to be adjusted for the change currency. So you no longer price the goods at 3,750. You now price the goods at 3,950 and above. Now for us, when we are changing interest rates, we look at what is the outlook for inflation. Because the Bank of Uganda monetary policy actions have a lag of 12 to 18 months. If we take an action today, it will impact the economy in about 12 to 18 months. That's what we call the transmission mechanism. But as a result of the depreciation in currency, we saw that inflation in the near term, that's 12 months, was going to increase from the 3% we had in February to nearly 7.58% if we had done nothing about it. So we decided then that why wait for inflation to get to 7-8%? Let's act now, given our transmission mechanism of 12 to 18 months. So we acted, and indeed, when we raised the deposit rate by 50 basis points, the currency began to appreciate. From the 3,950 we saw in February, it came down to about 3,850 in the month of March. So now we worked out the inflation outlook as a result of that. Inflation then had now begun to trend down from the 7.5 above to about 6%, 5.5 to 6%. So that's why we decided then now to raise it by another 25 basis points in the month of April. And that should bring us back to the 5% where we want to be. So we are forward looking. We project what's going to happen to inflation as a result of the developments. So in this case, we looked at, because the currency had depreciated, where is inflation going to be in 12 months' time? And given the transmission lag, what do we need to do? So we don't raise CBR because there's no money in the pockets of the people. We raise CBR because of the inflation outlook. We don't want inflation to go to 8-9% again. We've been there before. So that's why we raise the CBR. Yes, there's no money in the pocket of the people, but as a result of the depreciating currency, prices were going to go up. So we wanted to rein in. And we've kind of like succeeded in bringing back the exchange rate to where it should have been, save for the recent development of the downgrade of Uganda, which again caused a spike in the exchange rate. But
Governor, there are countries we visit and you find that their currency could be, say, 4 per dollar, 5. Do we have projections of getting there, or for us we shall maintain our pride in being in 3,000s in those digits?
I think from our point of view, it's not about the nominal amount of currency. It is about at what rate is the currency depreciating or appreciating. If we can hold the 3,700, the 3,800, 3,900 fairly constant, I think that's what we're looking for. How is the currency changing?
I am speaking as a patriot and nationalist. when I visit a country and I see it, I feel bad. Not as an economist. Yes.
The dollar was at the rate of around 1,600. Difference of 10 years. We are talking about 3,900, 3,750. I am happy with what you have explained, the mechanism that you've been trying to apply to say that you don't allow it to go. How come that you allowed it to move from 1,600 to 3,700 or 3,900? And you've been there. It's not that you've just entered that industry. You've been there.
Two, when you're addressing the governor, do not look at him in terms of the time he became governor. He inherited both assets and liabilities.
It's okay, Mr. Chairman. Secondly, I had expected you to talk about the foreign reserves, how it has been depleted and so on. It's one of the factors.
We thought it is incidental.
No, it's not. Actually, he knows that it's one of the factors as to why our exchange rates are actually moving the way they are moving. It's because we've tampered with it. But he doesn't want to talk about it. Are we safe with our foreign reserves?
I mean, earlier ones and new ones. So maybe you get me on how.
Fortunately,
yeah,
you have the ability to answer them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Chair, yes, you're right that the currency has depreciated from about 1,600 to 3,500. But you know, our currency is market determined, and if you don't have good macroeconomic variables to support a currency, it will depreciate. But let's focus from 2021 or 2020 to date. The currency in 2020 averaged about 3,600 shillings per US dollar. Today, it's trading at around 3,800. So for almost 4 years, the currency has remained in between. It has moved from 3,600 to 3,800 over a period of 4 years. So if you, in this challenging global financial environment, I think to us this is some good success. You need to look at what has happened to currencies of other countries. Take, for example, Nigeria. Nigeria has moved from 400 to almost 1,500 naira. Yes, Kenya, for example, all right, before they issued this bond, the currency moved from 110 to nearly 170. Rwanda has witnessed significant depreciation of their currency, and so has Tanzania. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, the currency in nominal terms may be high, but look at the movement over the last 4 years. It has remained relatively stable, oscillating between 3,650 and 3,800 over 4 years. Compare that to the past, where you were citing it moved from 1,600 to 3,800. I think the rate of change in the last 4 years has been, I mean, it should be appreciated. Okay. Now, yes, inflation, if you recall, was low and stable until in 2022, where it hit 10.6%. It took us to almost 10 years back. But it hit 10.6% in the month of October 2022, up from about 2.1% in January 2022. And that was as a result of so many factors. One, there was the opening up of the economy. Remember, schools had been closed for nearly 2 years. And in January 2022, schools were reopened. So the services inflation linked to education shot up. And that's when we saw the first rise in inflation in the month of January 2022. And then come February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. And the impact of that invasion is a well-known story to all of you. I'm not going to repeat it, all right? Commodity prices went up. Oil went up to nearly $120 a barrel. The palm prices here reached almost 7,000 shillings a liter. And the impact of that on the rest of the economy is known to everyone. Now, I think that was not enough. we saw the currency again depreciate because the investors in government securities of Uganda now began to go back to where they came from, particularly the advanced economies. As the advanced economies began to raise interest rates to deal with inflation, most of these investors left the economy and the currency depreciated. It actually reached 3,920 in the month of August 2022. And as a result of that, inflation also now picked up. And you all remember, honorable members of parliament, we had a very bad drought in 2022. So notwithstanding this confluence of these complicated factors, inflation only peaked at 10.6% because of the proactive monetary policy actions that the central bank took. We raised the policy rate by 350 basis points over a period of 4 months. We raised the cash reserve ratios by 200 basis points. We tightened liquidity, and that's how we were able to contain inflation at 10.6. In fact, Uganda was one of the best performing countries in terms of containing inflation. Inflation didn't go beyond 11%. And since then, inflation has come down. So it is a combination of these factors. Supply side improvement, thanks to government policy of promoting PGM, increasing supply response, and the control of inflation. So we've seen inflation come down. We are getting the numbers for the month of May today. They are being released today. But the one for April, you are all aware, was 3.2 for headline and 3.5 for core. So, colleagues, in this complicated environment, managing inflation at these rates is no mean achievement. And I want to thank the government of Uganda for the fiscal discipline that they have rendered to us. I want to thank all the Ugandans who have borne, of course, the hardships as we try to control inflation, because high inflation hurts the poor more than the rich. So we are protecting the Ugandans by keeping inflation low. Now, the other one is about borrowing from Bank of Uganda. We have what we call that when government securities mature, Bank of Uganda pays and then claims from government. Because once you are holding a government of Uganda security, it is prudent that on the day it matures, you get your money. But so now we are in a much better position because we are the ones who manage the treasury bills the treasury securities on behalf of government. So we know what's maturing on a particular day, so we pay and then government reimburses. But since the outbreak of COVID-19 in 2020 and the need to mitigate or to contain the spread of COVID-19, it became difficult for government because the revenues came down, the economy was locked. So there was no activity. So revenues collapsed. And yet expenditures went up because we needed to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So we needed to ramp up expenditures for the health workers, for the security officials to enforce the lockdown and relief for all those who were affected. There were many emergency plans put in place to control COVID-19. And you all recall that Uganda performed well again in terms of controlling COVID-19. So what happened? It meant that government had a bigger deficit to finance. And that's why we agreed with government that, okay, since the economy is now locked down and we need to stop aggregate demand in the economy, one way to start aggregate demand is to increase the shillings in the economy. So what you do, we agree not to repay the maturing securities and then let that money remain in the economy. We will pay, but you don't reimburse us. So let the money remain in the economy as a way of triggering aggregate demand. And then when you open up the economy and you begin getting the taxes, then you pay us back. It was a good arrangement as far as Bank of Uganda was concerned, because it was one way of triggering aggregate demand in a situation where there was no economic activity. Unfortunately, that thing has continued, that government has not been reimbursing Bank of Uganda in a timely manner. And mark my words, in a timely manner. They have been reimbursing, but the speed at which they are reimbursing is not fast enough to deal with what's maturing. And that's why the amount of government securities that have been redeemed by Bank of Uganda are not yet reimbursed. has grown from the 2.5 trillion at the time of COVID to, I checked it yesterday, it was about 6.1 trillion. Now, I cannot answer for the Minister of Finance why they have not been doing that. I think that's the question of the Minister of Finance. But we have a service level agreement to honor these securities. But the good news is that they are going to issue us with bonds, security bonds, to cater for all these outstanding obligations at the end of this financial year. I think it's part of the 24-25 budget. So that's what I have to say about that, Honorable Chair.
One, he has not answered the issue of the margin of difference from what he gives out to banks and what banks give out to their clients. But however, before he gets to that, I just wanted to see whether he's comfortable with the way and the manner in which the government is behaving in terms of paying its debts, yet is aware that
I think that's the one he said, and that's enough to communicate discomfort.
I just needed the opinion of the government.
He has not given you that opinion, and he passed it on to government.
Mr. Chairman,
I
would request that
receive my guidance. Yes. I am giving you my guidance.
Yes,
And you know you receive it in silence.
yes, I appreciate it.
You know you receive it in silence. That one we shall at our next meeting with them to answer it. So save him that one, because he has indicated to you the best is to have it, because he wants his money. Now you call the data to explain why is that kind of data. Who doesn't pay?
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir. And the minister will answer that. That one is true. He has also not answered the digital borrowing and lending.
The one of the margins. Yes, the CBR is about 10.25. But when commercial banks are lending to me, to you, this CBR plays a very minimal impact, right? What plays a bigger part is the rate at which they are borrowing government and they are lending government, because government is considered a competitor to the private sector. Now, if government is out there borrowing a lot of money from the market, it means that the rate at which government borrows money goes up. Now, remember, government is considered a risk-free borrower. So if they are going to lend you and me, Honorable, if they are going to lend you and me, they are going to mark up, all right, on the rate at which government borrows. So if, for example, right now, a 1-year treasury bill is about 14%, okay? The CBR is 10.25%. A commercial bank will not look at the CBR. They will look at how much do I need to give Honorable Nzale, okay? Do I give Honorable Nzale at 14%, or I give government at 14%? Certainly they will choose government over you, all right? And if they are going to give you, they are going to mark it up. Okay? Yes, I'm coming to that, Honorable. All right? So the first victim is government. If government reduces its appetite for borrowing from the domestic market, then the markup base, the base for marking up will come down. But right now it's not coming down. Now let's look at other factors. Honorable Nzago. There are lots of cases in court where a court has issued court injunctions. Borrowers have taken money from commercial banks. Commercial banks want to foreclose their collateral. Borrowers run to court. The estimate we have right now is about 6 trillion shillings locked up in courts. These are depositors' money. Now, if you went to a bank today and wanted to withdraw your money and you are told, no, we cannot pay you the money because so-and-so has not paid us, you will suddenly lose confidence in the banking system. So what Bank of Uganda does is, if that money remains in court for a long time, we have what we call the loan classification and provisions. After a certain period of time, if a loan has not been paid, a commercial bank is required to provide for that loan. So if you have loans of 6 trillion shillings locked up in a commercial court, and banks are looking for additional capital to provide for that, it means that the cost of capital to them has gone up. So what do? Right, they need to recover that. So they're going to heap it up on you again, you the borrower. They're going to heap it on you again. So on top of government, there are these loans that are caught up in the court injunctions, about 6 trillion shillings. Third one, the level of domestic arrears. The number of people who have borrowed money from the banking system, maybe to supply government goods and services, and government has not paid, is all in arrears. It's affecting the performance of these loans. So banks again are required to provide. So there are all kinds of factors. So the only way they can break even and have also some profit for themselves is by marking up on the 14%. Now, the 24% that you are talking about does not apply to all the borrowers. It depends on the type of the borrower. There are some borrowers who are getting at 16%, some at 18%, some at 24%, some at 26%. It also depends on the perceived risk the bank has on you. So, Honorable Nzali, that's how I want to answer that.
But, Governor, you earlier said that the business community is doing very well. But in your explanation, I think you realize that they are not doing well. Because you said the government is not paying, which is the main client. And you've also said that cases...
So someone has been growing that economy.
Conclude your questions. We are not receiving more questions. Okay. Let him conclude with those ones.
I'm not a... No. There's Kasolo who has another question. Yes.
He not Kasolo, the MP.
Can I go ahead, Chairman? Honorable Kasolo, I'm not aware of any meeting in Rwanda last year. I'm hearing it from you for the first time, that there was a so-called meeting. So I'm not aware of it. Okay? Okay. And then Honorable Alan Mayenja. I think the bank has been delivering. I don't know, is there anything to suggest that in the absence of the governor, the bank has not been performing? I think what's happening is that we have a board, we have senior management, and we have very, very capable staff. We have policies, guidelines to run the bank. The governance structures in the bank are performing, and that's why we're able to deliver. The Honorable Chair just talked about the audit reports. So I want to attribute this, that notwithstanding the absence of a governor, the governance structures in the bank are functional. We have a board to give us the oversight. We have a capable team of management and very, very working and excellent staff who have been able to deliver in this period.
So according
so
to
you have the liberty to even delete the governor from the law.
That was not the question, Honorable Chair.
It is now the question.
That's not for me to answer.
I feel for you, of course, because you're not here. As to whether you're functioning, I'm happy when you tell me you're functioning. But there is seriously big issue of running a country without a governor of the bank, because that position is created under the Constitution. But I wanted, as a frugal person who doesn't want to spend a lot of money, I was just digging into your thoughts. Because if we can run without a position, without somebody seated there, why don't we delete it so that we do not risk having another person come and eat our money? But don't answer that. Proceed to the next question, because it has its own issues.
Honorable Chair, you asked a question about the
and please forgive me.
Sorry. Is the Director of Finance who is overseeing that? I think I've talked a lot and I need to give some time to my team.
pay back, and then they have their property. All banks, of course, commercial banks, in enforcing their payments. And he's talking about, I think during COVID, or as a result of the effects of COVID-19, and where the banks refused to reschedule and give them fresh terms and had their property.
Borrowers who were affected by the lockdown, the COVID relief assistance to the borrowers, COVID liquidity assistance program, where we allow the borrowers to talk with the banks with the possibility of rescheduling the loans. The banks and the borrower would...
So you left it to the commercial banks. Now, the complaint of by the member is that you do not leave such a thing to commercial banks, because for them, they are created to make money. Right, because it's their duty. Can you tell us about the digital lending and the cryptocurrency regime?
Chair, allow me to ask Mr. Richard Biarugaba to respond to that.
Director of Finance.
I would like to answer that we do license institutions that are involved in moving money electronically. So this includes mobile money like MTN, Airtel, those who are licensed, and then we have a supermarket when you put your card. So there are other institutions that also get involved in transferring funds electronically, the ones we call fintechs. So those ones we license, and for products of moving money easily and faster, helping Ugandans, and also improving this agenda of inclusion, having even the bottom of the pyramid people accessing, receiving funds and saving. Now the institution is called the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority. So they do license any lending using that platform. So of course, when people use it for fraud, it is not good for taking advantage of Ugandans. So we will have to work with them to make sure that whoever uses our platform uses it to help Ugandans access funds and not take advantage of them and cheat them. Last week we issued a circular that if we give you a license and you connect somebody not regulated, then we will have to have a discussion on whether you should continue having the license. Because some of the institutions we license connect to other unlicensed people or institutions, and then you hear there was fraud, there was hacking. So we have given a stern instruction warning to the institutions that we license not to connect institutions that are not licensed by Bank of Uganda. But yes, there is an issue, we get complaints, and when complaints come, we address them, we contact our other institutions that are involved in this, the UMRA, and then we resolve this. Those who have lost money have complained and who have been able to recover their money if they were not involved in crime. Because sometimes people also get involved in things they are not supposed to get involved in. Somebody calls you that give me your PIN number and you give it. So when the money goes, it is you as given. The computer will not know that it's not you. You are given a PIN number to protect you. Give it, then you lose the money. But the lending is an issue of UMRA. Then there is a question of cryptocurrencies, and so in terms of regulation, we got the National Payment System Act, and we want to thank Parliament in 2020. That helped us to regulate institutions that are involved in lending, in transferring money electronically. So that one is under control. And so what we have not legislated is this issue of cryptocurrencies. We are still studying it, benchmarking. We shall come up with regulations. But
so this thing has been here for more than 6 years.
Yes.
For how long are you going to study it? When we are losing out on taxes, if you are to authorize, and it's moving unregulated, it is moving at a faster rate.
Chair, that's where we are. But if those who don't use,
why are you there? That's where you are. Why are you there?
It is ahead. Yes, Chair, and the market always moves ahead of us.
Why?
Because the innovators are many, and for us, we are regulators, we are not innovators. But we are going to come with regulation and guidelines on how to do this more cryptocurrency. Because you see, even where cryptocurrency is, it's not smoothly done. If you look at the cases, we want to encourage Ugandans to use something that you understand and is safe.
You don't understand it.
You have had issues with cryptocurrencies, tokens, people have lost money.
Then stop it. Then stop it. Your duty is to protect us. I have not been a victim, so I'm speaking objectively. Yes.
Some time back, the Honorable Minister of Finance came up with a statement, which we also stood back, that the use of these cryptocurrencies, right, legalized in Uganda, you only do it at your expense, because we do not know who is behind all these cryptocurrencies. So our advice to Uganda has been, please don't use these cryptocurrencies. We've issued circulars, we've issued press statements warning Ugandans not to use these currencies as of now. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think without further ado, I will call the BC, which is almost the lowest in the sector. We have asked Bank of Uganda to give us an answer in writing regarding that. The CBR and inflation rates, which have been raised as significant issues with the bank. We have received those answers and the efforts that the bank has put in place to ensure that we curb inflation, but at the same time allow the economy to grow. Because the concern of the members is that while you're fighting inflation, there is actually no money in circulation. And of course, those are two evils we have to deal with. Both are not good. Inflation makes us, puts us in a worse position than even lack of funds or money in circulation. So I think we will examine the answer given by the Deputy Governor and see which recommendations we need to come up with. Then we dealt with the issue of borrowings by government from the central bank without paying. As you would notice, the governor was telling us that the government is a defaulting borrower. They do not pay, and of course it affects what we have within the bank, and it has an effect on the economy. So we have resolved to invite the minister to tell us why they are not paying. Of course, that is related to the general debt situation, that they are not only defaulting borrowers from Bank of Uganda, but even when it comes to the individuals and the businesses from which government borrows in Uganda, government doesn't pay. Today, the public debt stands at 97 trillion. It puts us in a much worse situation. The debt to GDP ratio is at its worst. So we are inviting government or Ministry of Finance, which deals with the fiscal policy. We've heard from the version of the monetary policy, which is under the docket of Bank of Uganda. We want to hear from the fiscal policy and to see the fiscal objectives and the strategies of government from the Minister of Finance. Is there anything else? Yes, the cryptocurrency, the governor has reiterated what they've said before, that you engage in cryptocurrency at your risk because it is not regulated, it has no enabling law. He actually considered they have not understood it. So if you're trading in something that the central government has not understood or appreciated, definitely you're in a much bigger trouble. Well, it seems that the people on the digital platform are moving at a faster rate than the economists of the country, than the chief economists of the country, than the government. Of course, you have a government of men who are older than me, much older than me. And then if you're talking digital, then you know what I mean. I don't want to say they are obsolete, but they're incapable of moving or matching the speed at which the digital platform is growing.
Is your committee concerned about the Bank of Uganda having for issue of
Yes, we are deeply concerned and appalled that for 3 years you can run an economy without a governor, Bank of Uganda, who is not only governor and chief executive of the central bank, but also the chairman of the central bank board. Even with the guidance from the Constitutional Court, if you remember the case taken to court by Honorable Sam Kutesa and others challenging the constitutionality and the constitution of the Inspectorate of Government, that if one person is not there, then you do not have the body constituted. General Museveni thinks things are okay. I was polite in telling you that this country is ruled by people older than me. I mean those that have gone beyond retirement age. If it were commodities, which word would you use? Expiry. So you cannot have a functional state with a non-functional executive. Katikale kyogedde mina bayitako dda si bakadde bukadde naye bakoowu nnyo. Oddukanya otya eggwanga nga gavana wa banka enkulu taliiwo okumala emyaka 3 naye nga takoma kukomi kubeera nti yatwala banka eyo, naye mu ngeri yemu nga yakulira olukiiko olufuga banka, n'olowooza nti banka ejja kutambula bulungi. N'olwekyo bannayuganda mbasaasira olwekyo. Ekirala nti kitukutteko omunaabuuko gw'ensimbi n'ebbula ly'ensimbi, ebimu nga byetooloolera kubeera nti gavumenti yeewola mu banka ya Uganda n'etasasula. So obulyazaamaanya bwa gavumenti ya Uganda tebukoma ku banka naye butuuka ne ku bannansi. Kyova olaba nti gavumenti ebanjibwa trillions kati 97, naye nga budget bakugambye budget ya trillions meka temumanyi 72 naye ze bakubanja kagamba ne bwogamba leero ku mulundi guno Uganda tejja kulya, Uganda tejja kunaaba, Uganda tejja kwebikka, Uganda tejja kugula ddagala kwejjanjaba, budget ya Uganda tesobola kusasula bbanja lye tulina. General Museveni yayomba okusanga nga gavumenti ezaamukulembera zeewoze $1 billion 2 mu obukadde 600. Naye kati nkulaze waali. N'olw'ensonga eyo ng'eggwanga tuli bubi, abantu mbasaba basibe enkoba, embuto bazinyweze, bo bennyini nga tebanatuuka kunenya gavumenti basooke beekebere ngeri ki gye bakendeeza ku ngeri gye beewolamu ku nsimbi ze balya ne ze basaasaanya, kubanga n'eggwanga lyennyini liri bubi. So tusabye tukanyiza tusabe mukulu waffe kadde waffe Mzee Kasaija, Minister of Finance, ajja atubuulire lwaki tebasasula Bank of Uganda. Kuba kye baagala kati baagala kukomawo kuzinda ggwanika nti ba recapitalizing Bank of Uganda ti basobole okugiddizaawo ku ssente. Tulowooza nti economy tetambula bwetyo. Weewaawo tuli bubi naye okubeera kwaffe obubi okumu be bakututuusaamu. Ate basasule n'amabanja g'abannansi be balyazaamaanyiza okumala ebbanga. Economy eddemu esituke kuba kati eggwanga economy terina ssente mu saturation. Okusuubulira ku mutimbagano mu byensimbi, gavana wa Bank of Uganda atugambye tebamanyi kigenda mu maaso, tebakisobola, n'olwekyo tebakiruŋŋamya, tebakuwa magezi kugenda kusuubuliramu ebyo na gavumenti yennyini byetategeera. Minister wa Finance Honorable Medard Kasaija, President we Jjajja Yoweri, kaakati abo banaasobola batya okutegeera eby'omutimbagano? Ku bombi ani asobola okutayipinga ebbaluwa including a love letter, n'omukwasa computer n'omugaa you type a love letter to your loved one. Jajjawe erina omugamba typingira mama Jane akabaluwa ku birthday ku computer tekuli, so tebasobola kutegeera bino bya mutimbagano. Kibayinza okukola kati kubiyimiriza mu nsi endala babiregulating babirungamya ne bakola etteeka kimaze wano emyaka egisukka 6 kibalemye okutegeera agambye tetukimanyi tetusobola kukiwagira mukiveeko bannayuganda mukiveeko bajja babba. Governor, Deputy Governor wa bank atugambye ku kyokutereeza oba okukyusa ku magoba abantu kwe beewolera kiyina enteekateeka bbiri. Enteekateeka esooka kwe kulaba nti ensimbi tenaabuuka n'olwekyo balina okuba nga bakigoberera. Enteekateeka ey'okubiri gye balina okubalansinga nayo kwe kulaba nti ate abantu beewolera ku ssente nga zisoboka economy esobole okukola ki okuddawo okwezimba oba okutinta. Ekyo kizibu nnyo okukibalansinga obulungi. Balina okwebuuzaako ku nsi ezikikola. Bw'ogenda mu nsi nga China abantu babawolera ku 2% basobole okuproducinga kubaako bye bakola ensimbi eggwanga lifune ensimbi era kyova olaba China ngagga. Naye wano bakuwolera ku bitundu 24 nga bali bakuwolera ku bitundu 2 ensimbi basobole ozisika mu economy. Kati abantu banaproducinga batya banasiga batya ensimbi nga beewolera ku buwanana. Ekyo tekyetaaga gavumenti ng'eyaabo, kyetaaga gavumenti eyaffe ndowooza yinza okukitegeera. Eri Masaka leero gavumenti kisegenze Masaka gavumenti esigadde kavule naye pulezidenti agenda anti omanye ekizibu jjajjammwe yaboonoona mulowooza ye gavumenti eyawo yena mugongo.
Alan Mayanja Sebunya omubaka Nakaseke Central. Kituufu Deputy Governor yatulaze nti tewali buzibu bwonna oluvannyuma lw'okumubuuza ekibuuzo nti owaayi emyaka ebbanga ligenderedde eggwanga teririna substantive governor emirimu gitambula gitya n'agamba gitambula bulungi tewali buzibu bwonna but in actual sense bw'okola assessment ye tasobola kukubuulira kituufu kubanga ye yali mu position eyo. Naye tulowooza nti bw'otunuulira olwaleero engeri gye bitambulamu nga Uganda esobola okwewola mu Bank of Uganda ng'olwaleero almost tugenda mu 7 trillions nga wano ku floor ya parliament bakuleetera supplementary budget nti sente zibadde genda osasula ebbanja lya Bank of Uganda tuzikutte ne tuziwa abalala oba ne tuziwa entity. Kitegeeza waliwo okukuba ebyayi government Bank of Uganda bw'eba ebanja ssente mu gavumenti ya Uganda mu executive ebaamu okukuba ebyayi kwegamba esaaga. Kati ekyo kyekireetera okubeera nga tugamba no walina okubeerawo substantive governor ayimirira ddamu ebibuuzo fact n'olwaleero kubanga era ono yeeyanjula nga assistant kwani ataliiwo oli yafa dda. Kitegeeza tulina okubeera ne governor ateekeddwawo ajja okukola emirimu y'ensonga lwaki kuba tumubuuza kakyogamba eggwanga libeerewo nga teririna gavana ekyo kibuuzo tasobola kikuddamu kuba naye akimanyi ekyo tikiriyo ne mu mateeka okusinziira mu kulwaninga institution financial institution ng'eyo ey'eggwanga lyaffe erya Uganda. Alan Mayanja Sebunya, Member of Parliament, represent people of Nakaseke Central, Deputy Chairperson Kosase. Of course, I had to raise this matter before the Deputy Governor, whereby it has taken a couple of years without having a substantive governor. I have to question him that how is it affecting them. Of course, he answered affirmatively that there is no any challenge, but the way the institution is being run, like government is borrowing a lot of money from Bank of Uganda, and even at the floor of Parliament, the executive has guts where to transfer the money which was supposed to pay the Bank of Uganda east debt to transfer it to another entity. Meaning there is laxity, meaning the government, the Bank of Uganda is not doing its responsibility, and that's why even the debt is increasing at a terrible speed. So meaning in actual sense we need a governor, a substantive governor, but as a committee we shall come up with a recommendation and we guide what is supposed to. Maybe we shall compel Mr. Museveni to appoint the governor. Of course, minister ino kujanyonyole kubanga naye yenyini era governor, deputy governor gamunange kakati mulimu ebibuuzo besobola kuddamu tulina kubuuza minister ya finance. Minister tulina okujja Kasayijja oba musasize fact kati olwaliro omusasize yasinga okukola emirimu gya Kasayijja olwaliro eggwanga lyaffe erituuse eriteriiyo governor eno minister wa finance musasize yakola emirimu kugamba yembeera eyakwagama gye tuli naye in actual sense minister erina okujja ennyonnyole ku nsonga eno lwaki ebbanja lino lirinnyira ku speed emabegako emyaka mitono nnyo libadde ku 2.5 trillion naye almost kati limu 6.5 trillion kitegeeza sente nyingi eziba zeewolebwa mu Bank of Uganda government zeyeewola kyokka ate nezitasasula mu budde kubanga ekyo kya affecting economy kitegeeza capital yeeyongera ekyo nekikosa abantu abali mu business kitegeeza Munnayuganda nasigala nga yakosebwa buli lwe wabeerawo embeera efaanana bwetyo.
Byebyo ebivuddeyo mu kakiiko mubadde gavana akolanga gavana bank enkulu ya Uganda ne banne bakulembera nabo bazze bokyeza ebibuuzo ansa ze bazzeemu zezo zimala amaanyi ne Uganda yafume tulitongera okwesabira n'okulwana okulaba nga tutereze eggwanga lyaffe tutereze Uganda eno tugobe Nakyema ya Gino Museveni kubanga buli kimu yakitwalanga bwalaba era bwayagala eggwanga lyaffe nga lisaanawo n'ensimbi ziri mu kuweewuuka buli olukyazigwa naye bo tebakwatako kubanga bo baba bubbi era bamanyi bagenda very soon n'olwekyo eggwanga lyammwe liggwa ne liggwawo tebibakwatako bo bali ku kimu kyakubba naye twongera okusabirigana paka ensi yaffe weeterera. Baagala nnyo mwenna baliko bali kubeerako dunda baganda mugera kitaffe nsaba bakuume banange mweraba.